Welcome everyone to the Garden of Thought. I'm your host, Jeff Lippman, or some of you know me as Dose Evil, sometimes Evil Dose, depending on which side of the upside down you're on. This is a Wednesday show. For those of you who are live, you are aware of that because you are watching live on Wednesday or listening live on Wednesday. For those of you who are new to the show, sometimes, not always, but sometimes these Wednesday shows are more policy driven, more current events, and the weekend shows tend to be a little bit more eclectic, but not always. So it can just fit into eclectic. Today's guest is Dr. Athena Hall, MD. So doctor, not like the doctorate I have. And welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I'm excited to be here.
I am too. I mean, I'm excited for you to be here. Me, not so much. I'm used to me. But the topic today is healthcare. And I've been trying to back into the topic of healthcare policy, law, and things like that, sort of slowly, and that's sort of how I approach big issues. I sort of nibble around the edges a little bit, go to some of the, topics that maybe people don't necessarily realize they are being pulled into that topic, and then I try to dive in and usually get guests with various different credentials or in different corners of the marketplace. But you're a doctor, and this is your issue, and hopefully we'll have a pretty broad-based conversation on healthcare law. But I think before we get into all that, tell people a little bit about yourself, your 411, your biography, and how you got here.
Yeah. So I am a pediatrician. I work in hospitals and urgent care, and I went into healthcare because I have a passion for global health. I did a global health fellowship after my residency training, and I didn't expect it to be so eye-opening. At the time, I thought I was going to be going and there to help and to teach, but I found that I was actually learning a lot, and it really was a humbling experience. And from that, I started to have a lot of deeper questions about our healthcare system, and created a network to bring people together so that we can think about how our healthcare system can be more community-centered and relationship-driven instead of transactional, and looking at the whole health of people.
Okay, I think that's a great song. That gives plenty of places to start with the conversation. You told us when you went in what you got disillusioned with, but and the healthcare industry, as I remember from the Obamacare days, is 1/6 of the U.S. economy. I imagine as people get older and we live longer, that creeps up some. So it's 1/6 plus of the U.S. economy, and if you take out everything that's allegedly AI, it's probably half of the economy. I'm an AI skeptic, or panicist, if that's a real word, and if it's not, I just made it up. In any event, what were some of the issues that you encountered and that you are convinced are fixable? And I understand the reason I would talk about is how big it is in the economy is because I realize there's probably dozens of issues, but we have about an hour, unless you want to go longer. But so if you could say the top 5 big issues, and then we could talk about how you want to address them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first big issue that I saw was that our healthcare system is hierarchical, like many of our other systems. I saw how we had the doctor is the expert and the patient is a passive recipient of care, and that the healthcare system was centered on the institution instead of on what the community needs. And so from that, it opened my eyes to how there was a lot of mistrust between the community and the institutions and the patient and the healthcare provider. So I feel going forward, what could really shift our healthcare system is to partner with communities and center our healthcare system around their needs, and treat them as partners instead of recipients of care. The second thing that I saw was that our healthcare system is a disease management system and not actually a health system. So our incentives are more aligned with volume and treating disease instead of promoting health and supporting people to be healthy. So I feel that that could be changed by shifting our incentives in our healthcare system. And then the third thing, let's see, I saw how, so a lot of the patients in Rwanda were having to like sell their land and their animals in order to pay for like one child's healthcare bill. So they had to make a choice whether to go into more poverty or to, give their child life-saving medications. And so oftentimes they would end up, getting the medication, and then their family would go into deeper poverty and have further health issues. And I realize that happens in the US as well, where 2/3 of medical debt or 2/3 of bankruptcy are due to medical debt here in the US. And we do very little in our healthcare system to support people's basic needs like housing and transportation and food security and things that help them to be healthy. And we have a lot of financial toxicity that puts people into serious debt and a lot of stress. So those are the top three things that really opened my eyes while I was there.
That's good. Take a little side quest. How do you find yourself practicing medicine in Rwanda?
Yeah, that was my global health fellowship, was in Rwanda and in the Four Corners on a Navajo reservation. So yeah, it was a 2-year fellowship.
So you've always been a do-gooder.
I actually, I have been like a rescuer through my life because of the situation I was in growing up, just kind of a role that I fell into. And it was something that I realized several years ago that, I went into healthcare and these things partially because I was a rescuer, a do-gooder. And so I've been kind of shifting away from that and wanting to be more of a supporter for people instead of and listening to people instead of just rescuing them.
Yeah, no, it's nothing to be ashamed of or that requires much explanation. It's great, and it's great that you're trying to carry that forward. I do want to get into some of your ideas for solutions, and I suspect that maybe this is tied to the conversation anyway. But when you identify communities, how do you pick the community? I mean, there are religious centers, there's not-for-profits, there's schools, there's local governments, there's hospitals, there are clinics. How are you vetting what represents the community to be a partner for you, and what's the sales pitch, and I just like, maybe we should back up and you should tell us a little bit about your organization, and you don't have to go through its bylaws, but sort of its governing principles, and that might fill in some of these blanks.
Well, the network that I have been building is still in process. It's still being built. And when we think about community, it's oftentimes a geographical definition. And there are a lot of examples of health systems that serve their communities, and they usually look at a geographical area and have different people from that community on the governing board to make decisions. They also rotate those people over time.
Do you recruit them, or do they apply? Obviously, if you recruit them, you've got to do investigation on the front end. If they apply, you only have to do sort of vetting on the back end, which, I'm not saying which is better or worse or which is easier or harder, but how is it currently set up? And I know you said you're still getting off the ground, so what you're doing today might not be what you're doing in 3 weeks or 3 years.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. The network is actually for people that want to be part of changing our healthcare system. So it's people across sectors. They can be in healthcare or outside of healthcare. And they just fill out a form saying, what their interest is, what their passion is around. And there are people from all walks of life and with different capacities in the network. So some people are really like wanting to spend a lot of time investing in changing our healthcare system, and some people can only like show up every now and then and offer whatever support they can. So yeah, so it's just we learn about different systems that are doing really cool things, and we find ways that we can support programs and systems, as well as developing projects for the future.
Right. So I'm in the Baltimore area, and I'm sure if anyone picked any city or any region, you could say everything is here. But I would say literally everything is here. You have uber wealth, you have old money, you have new money, you have stark poverty, you have rural that's 7 to 10 miles out of city lines. You have back when in the 90s when the show Homicide was around, they would call Billy Boys, which you probably can't say anymore, but it was basically city hillbillies, which is probably a way of talking about the less rich versions of Kid Rock, I suppose. But we've got it all, and there's also a healthy middle class, and there's gentrified areas, and there's arts communities and whatever. So there's a little bit of everything here, and there are some not-for-profit health clinics which are great. There's hospitals and clinics which are serving people and serving them well, and in some cases, people can get appointments much more quickly there than they can, in their high-price, best hospital in the world, Johns Hopkins, also here, healthcare system. Again, I guess I'm not really sure what the community is. I mean, I don't know if you would want to deal with Johns Hopkins, or you would want to talk more with I think it's called Chase Brexton, which is a not-for-profit hospital that does, I think, is all donor and Medicaid based. Or maybe you don't have a preference. So maybe it's as long as they adhere to whatever the goal. So yeah, if you know where the question mark is there, just try to elaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if they are aligned with our mission on building a health system that is community centered and looks at the whole health of people, that's what we're focused on. But we do want to support more of the grassroots efforts. Community health centers are doing really amazing work, and they already have incredible infrastructure within the U.S. Where they're addressing people's basic needs, and they have a integrated health model where they have interdisciplinary teams with like nutritionists and primary care and behavioral health specialists, and this whole team that will see that patient, as well as a dentist. And so different systems like that are really what we're interested in helping to support and build up. Yeah.
Also seems like, I mean, based on what you were saying, that it would be helpful to have dietitians and nutritionists as well, probably pediatric as well as all stages of life. It's interesting when you were talking earlier, I get to think, because I listen and I'm an active listener, but sometimes I have to hold on to my thought and say it, or I forget it because I'm also old. It seems that if the proper incentives were there, and you think the economic encouragement for things like insurance companies would be there to support gym memberships and extracurricular sports for kids, and some sort of subsidy for healthy eating, even if it's controlling, even if you listen, not telling anybody what to buy or not to buy, but if you're going to use this subsidy card, it's got to be for fruits and vegetables, and something that's not processed. You can use your other money to buy your Lucky Charms and Coca-Cola and whatever. No one's telling you what to buy and not buy, but for that subsidy thing, that there's certain codes that are approved for, whatever, 93% or not or above, low fat beef, chicken, and maybe it's too much to get into GMOs and organics, but at least, fruits and vegetables, and we're doing enough there, or at least that's enough progress and the insurance companies would probably save themselves billions over the years. I mean, is that even a realistic policy goal? Is that something that you would try to encourage or could even try to encourage?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the biggest problems in our country, in our systems, is that we are short-term thinkers, and a lot of our businesses and politics are set up for short-term rewards instead of the long-term, uh, health benefits that you would get from prevention and healthy eating. So, sometimes policies can make it in, but then a new politician gets in and throws it out. Um, so things like having incentives for people like that could work. But some people are living in, food deserts where when I was on the Navajo Nation, there was, one small grocery store, and some people lived way, way far away from that. And that grocery store didn't have like a great selection of vegetables and fruits. And so, sometimes policies like that can actually create more barriers for people that are, marginalized and living in places that don't have those kind of opportunities.
Oh, clearly, absolutely. But I mean, I think one problem that sometimes we face is that we let the perfect get in the way of the better, good, or very good. And and sometimes when you make things better, then you have more resources to free up to, and that's what progress is. And I just, I'm sure you're entirely correct about food deserts and things like that. But if we could improve it for, I don't know, 80%, then resources could be diverted to work on the other 20%, or there could be other organizations that spin off on that. I mean, I'm not trying to diminish any part of that. I just don't know how to address something so universal, even limited to the United States. I mean, forget about, the rest of the world has their own issues as well.
I think too, a big part of policy needs to be regulating these big businesses and corporations rather than policing so much of individuals' behavior. Um, so, having some regulations around, um, what can be advertised in these areas, or what, needs to be offered. There needs to be more fresh fruits and vegetables. Maybe they need to bring in, um, you know, more farming in some areas, or, have different things available so that everybody has access instead of just focusing on the individual changing their behavior.
My understanding is that some of the laws and some of the regulations in this country are sort of ridiculously loose on what you can call organic, and that they wouldn't be considered organic in say Europe, which I guess I'm going on some assumption that theirs is probably more honest, but I believe it because there's less lobbying, and also because most of them have socialized healthcare. And think when you want to socialize healthcare, the government has every interest in keeping the costs down. Um, so and so I would have to believe that that if they want people to be healthy, they wouldn't want them to be thinking they're buying something healthy that says non-organic, non-GMO, non this, and it's a definition that is like Orwellian. It's like think speak that is completely untrue. But is what I said is it correct? Are the regulations in the U.S. allowing companies and producers to call things all natural, organic, non-GMO, and it wouldn't pass the smell test of reasonable scrutiny for the plain meaning of those terms?
Yeah, from my understanding, there is a lot looser regulations here in the US. We also have less regulations on things like red food dye and different things that are actually pretty harmful. So a lot of families that live in these food deserts are buying food that has these ingredients that we haven't banned that countries in Europe have. And so our government isn't really aligned with caring about our long-term health unless it negatively affects them or has some sort of major backlash. And a lot of these things are like insidious and long-term and hard to really highlight or to hold the government accountable. And so they just kind of go under the radar, and we end up with a lot of a lot of corporations finding loopholes and doing things so that they can have bigger productions or sell more products, and they really don't care about our health, obviously. So
And
a
bigger
lot.
profit margins. I mean,
Yeah,
listen, just using myself as a case study, I love me some Reese's peanut butter cups. I have always loved Reese's peanut butter cups.
I love some of those too.
But I can tell you from the time I was a child to the time I was a young adult to the time I was, a real adult, meaning married with a house and kids, to the time I was middle aged to now, whatever is in that filling has gone less and less, gotten further and further away from peanut butter all the time. It
Absolutely.
doesn't quite taste the same, but it tastes close enough and it's still delicious. But the peanut butter is further from peanut butter. The chocolate is further from chocolate. Um, and and I'm sure all of those chemicals cost a whole lot less than every other part of it. And I'm not trying to pretend that the Reese's peanut butter cup, even in its most you know pristine state, was ever healthy. But this has got to be worse. And I don't mean to pick on Reese's or the Mars Company or Hershey or wherever it is, but
Mhm.
I'm sure it's all the same. I'm sure it's the same with Almond Joy and York Peppermint Patty and Three Musketeers and cupcakes.
And that's why regulations have to exist, because these corporations are always going to push the boundaries. They're always going to try to find ways to cut costs. And so regulations have to be in place if our government actually cares about our health and our well-being. So that's just the reality of it all, because these corporations are going to do what they're going to do to make money.
If you were to give it a best guess, what would be the percentage of the world's innovation in healthcare and pharmaceutical drugs for healthcare that come out of the United States versus the rest of the world combined?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. If I were to just guess, I would say somewhere around 60%. I think it is like a good percentage of the innovations come out of the US. But yeah, that's something I would have to do some research on.
Yeah, no, it's a big question, and the reason I ask it is, is one, because a lot of the other countries in the developed world have subsidized healthcare, socialized healthcare, that I hear a lot of things where people say our healthcare system is not designed to cure disease; it's there to treat it, to manage it. You said that too. I've heard that, and it makes a lot of sense given our healthcare system. But it doesn't make a lot of sense on a global healthcare system. You would think that the Canadas and the UKs and the Germanys of the world and Sweden, who they're paying the freight of it, have exactly the opposite. Their interests are the same as insurance companies, paying out as little as possible. So cure, cure, cure. But if 60% or more of the innovations coming from the United States, they don't really have, they're already at a disadvantage. And the other thing is, we pay so much more for our drugs here in the US than they do internationally. And I know that there's a bunch of reasons for it. I'm not really sure what any of them are. And that's got to be part of this sort of this insidious puzzle as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are interesting points. Uh, the I think there's less incentive in some of these countries to innovate, and in the U.S. There is kind of like a lot more pressure to have new technologies and new drugs and, making a lot of money and profit from these discoveries. So, in Canada and in Germany and these other countries, they still have the same healthcare model. It's a biomedical model, which is what we have here. And instead of what some other places have, like a biopsychosocial model. So they look more at the mental health and the social well-being of people. And so it's still a disease-focused model in a lot of these countries. And but I think they just have less incentive to have all these discoveries. And then for the drugs, I'm not sure what, I forgot what your question was on that, but.
Just that we apparently we pay like at least 3 times more for the same meds as they do in other countries, which, I mean, maybe that's part of the deal with pharmaceutical companies is we subsidize it, but
Yeah.
I know part of it is that until recently, the federal government wasn't even allowed to negotiate with drug companies about prices. Apparently Medicare can now, but it's like drip, drip, drip of the drugs they can. It's not all at once. And I guess private insurance companies don't have that same right, or maybe they do. I don't know enough about it, but in Europe, for instance, they clearly do. They can negotiate the prices with the drug companies, who are clearly saying yes. And in some of the countries that maybe don't have so much in the way of insurance companies, a lot of it's being given away at much less prices, which is great. I mean, they need it, and then they have less resources, and there's something about, social equity and, whether that's trimming around the hedges or major. I guess it depends if you need that drug and you're getting it or not. But it is a strange system.
It is, yeah. In the US, they get away with a lot more. And like pharmaceutical companies are able to, there's a lot of them as lobbyists, and they have their hand in a lot of politicians and policymakers' pockets. And so there are also just a lot less regulations here around that. So they're able to get away with selling drug or medications for a lot more money than they could in other countries. So they tend to make a lot of their profits in the US, and kind of in a lot of African countries, they may donate or give away medications for like a lot less. And they're able to do that because they sell medications for such higher prices here in the US.
Okay. Yeah. So earlier you said there's a psychomedical and then a psycho or different model.
Yeah.
What is the second model, which, I mean, I think was pretty clear is the model that you prefer, and you can confirm that. And what's the essential difference? And then I promise I'm going to shut up and let you talk about your organization and what you're trying to do with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the biomedical model is what is across most of the world. It's a reductionist model that sees the body as parts, and it looks at, mostly focuses on diseases and looks at people as something to fix. So like a part to fix, like a car. And it was a model that was developed, I think in the 1800s, and it has served us well and gotten us, far in disease management, but it has a lot of gaps. And so we're missing so much of the picture of what creates health in that model. It's not just biology, it's not just body parts. So then there's the biopsychosocial model. So there's a health system in Alaska called the Nuka System of Care. It's designed by the Alaska Natives, and they have a biopsychosocial model where they have integrated care teams that look at the whole health of people, including if they are spiritual, they'll have like a traditional healer from the Alaska Native tribe. in the care team, as well as somebody looking at nutrition and at the social aspects, and they address all kinds of things that you wouldn't even think a healthcare system would address. Like they had the community really wanted this bar that was in their neighborhood to be changed into a community space that served coffee. And so the health system helped to make that happen. And they do things like that because it's for the health of that community, and it's what the community is asking for. So that's kind of the difference between those two models.
Okay. So I know your organization that you're building is called ZNA Health Network. I was originally hoping that was going to be Xena Warrior Princess. It's apparently not assembling an army of Xena Warrior Princesses, though I still think you should think about that as a side project. But what is the ZNA Health Network? What are you trying to do? How are you trying to do it?
Yeah, so it's a network to bring people together from across sectors, so they not just in healthcare, so that we can support programs and health systems that are doing really cool things in the health sphere, and like build that up, because our health system isn't going to change from the top down. Nobody at the top is going to decide.
No, they're doing great. They're making record profits.
Yeah, they're not going to abandon the status quo because it's really benefiting them. So we need to build up what's already working and support that. And we'll also be developing our own projects with the mission of listening to communities and looking at the whole health of people, and having a relationship driven health system instead of transactions. And within the network, we can see what different projects people are working on. People can hop on and offer support in different ways. That might be monetarily, it might be because they have a certain skill or knowledge. And so, it's really to break all those barriers that we have in our health system, where everything's so siloed and isolated and people are working on different things. It's to bring all of that together so that we can make change happen.
Which are the stakeholders that you're looking to? Is it healthcare professionals? Is it healthcare institutions? Is it drug companies? Is it politicians? All of the above? Anybody who's willing to be a part of it. What is your vision? I mean, I'm assuming this is a 501c tax exempt, not for profit, or might be at one point, but that's not really particularly important. But if it is, you had the mission statement that it got approved, so you could easily spit that out. But you don't. But whatever what is the vision that you're trying to achieve, and who you're trying to attract to it?
Yeah, so we're attracting anybody who wants to be part of changing our healthcare system, and I'm really wanting to bring in people who see the problems in our healthcare system, and they feel passionate about creating change.
That dog feels very passionate about it. I can tell.
He does. Hey. Sorry, he's protecting us.
It's okay. He's doing a great job.
Yeah, he is.
I'm helpless.
Yeah. So it can be, somebody that works in a daycare. It can be somebody who is, working in social work, or they're a technician, or they work, as a janitor. Somebody that just feels like they want to be part of changing our health system.
So it's totally grassroots. You're not. It's completely egalitarian. It's you're bottom up and trying to get a groundswell. So you're not. It's not like you're just targeting community-based healthcare groups, but I presume they're welcome. If they were.
Yeah, and we have guest speakers who are from community-based organizations who are doing things that are aligned with our mission. So they come in and talk about the work that they're doing, the challenges they face, all the different things that we can learn from as
Who are they
we're,
talking to? Who do they speak? Who the guest speaker is speaking to?
yeah, so people in the network, in the
Okay.
community. Yeah.
Okay. Do you make any of the resources? Do you like send any of the talks over to? I'll just keep on picking on my area. Do you send it to, the Baltimore City Department of Health, to the Baltimore County Department of Health, or Department of Social Services, and say, hey, here's our speaker series. Take a look at this. Maybe you're interested in some of what we have to say. Um,
Yeah,
how do you get the word out?
that's a great idea. It's still, growing, and going forward, I'm going to be looking at how to kind of bring in people from different areas. Um, and yeah, we will need support from some of these bigger organizations uh, to like support in terms of money or expertise. And so, yeah, we'll be potentially sending them some of these videos, or just like talking with them, bringing them into the network individually or as an organization. But the main thing is we just don't want to have any of these organizations shift our mission. So it is actually an LLC, and
Oh, okay.
I'm going to make it, and I'm going to shift it so that it's actually mission owned instead of individually owned organization. And then we're going to have a sister nonprofit where donations will go. And then the donations will also go towards the programs and nonprofits that we're supporting.
Well, that would also help you attract grants if that's what you're looking for. I mean, it seems to me that like there are institutions which seem to be aligned with your. I mean, you would think any insurance company that is pushing the HMOs, and they're all pushing the HMOs, would be aligned with your interests because they want to have healthy people. Because part of it is keep people healthier. You spend less on it. More people move to your HMO. You're paying out less. You'd think that the United States Department of Health, Human Services, led by RFK, who I think he's wrong about 90 out of 100 things, but the 10 things he's right about are very similar to the 10 things that you mentioned. So you think that he would be interested in that, not necessarily himself, but who knows what that guy does during the day. I mean, I'd say you should attract him with a small dog, but God knows what he's going to do with small animals. He doesn't have a good history with that. But I mean, forget about me and my gallows humor aside. I mean, is that part of the plan, that when you have the sister not for profit to seek grants from entities such as those that at least should be aligned with your mission?
Yeah, we may eventually do that. The big hurdle sometimes with that is these grants come with strings attached. And so just wanting to make sure that what we're doing is in alignment with our mission, and not getting pulled over in a different direction. But yeah, I want to have the network be kind of a co-op in a way where we're not so heavily reliant on grants and government funding, where we're actually supported by community members and people that are really invested in their community's health.
I don't want to presume anything. Can you explain to the audience what a co-op means?
Yeah, so you can have like a co-op grocery store where everybody that goes there can be a member of the grocery store, and pay a little bit each month towards the grocery store, and then yeah, go to,
Community owned,
yeah,
almost
community,
like a Costco club or membership,
right,
uh,
yeah,
but not exactly.
yeah. And I think you know our healthcare system is essential infrastructure. We don't treat it that way, but if you were to get really sick, that you need healthcare. It's something that you absolutely need. And if our ERs were to all shut down today, that would be a national disaster. And so we need to be treating it like water, electricity, these things that are essential. And so, for our public utilities, we're paying a little bit each month, as, a collective. And so I think just looking at these different payment models going forward is something that we need to consider instead of just looking at health insurance, which could be part of the picture, absolutely. But the way we have it now is everyone can agree it's not working. So.
Well, we saw the ER system basically collapse during COVID. It actually didn't collapse, but it was overcrowded, and it was full and overfull, and people who would normally go to the ER for things couldn't always get the treatment that they needed. And whatever people think about COVID or whatever, I mean, the most interesting, a more interesting conspiracy theory would be that it was set up by a public health system to let you know that there needed to be changes to the system so that wouldn't happen again. It's probably it's not as fun as a pandemic or the Chinese were trying to kill us all, or it was all fake to keep us home. I'm still trying to figure out what that means. They want to control you. No, they want to control us. They want us to pay taxes, not cause too much trouble, and buy stuff we don't need. That's
Exactly.
the control they want. And guess what? They got that. They've got that. If you're doing that, they're controlling you.
Figured it out.
That's right. Yeah. For instance, I have a computer, a camera, and a microphone that I probably don't need for this podcast because I feel like I'm very important. In any event, taking it away from me, I told you that I was going to give you an opportunity to just uninterrupted talk about your organization. So go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like I already did
Okay.
with the ZNA Health Network, and but I really appreciate you giving me space to talk about that. And it is a growing network. We're accepting members and bringing in guest speakers. So if anybody is interested in joining, you can go to www.znahealthnetwork.com and just join the network from the website. So everybody is welcome. We are just really excited to grow and gain some momentum. So.
Okay, well, it sounds like anybody can join. So if you're in the healthcare industry, if you're not in the healthcare industry, just if you're a concerned citizen, a social worker, a PRP therapist, or a patient who feels like things haven't been going well for you, that this is a place where you will find like-minded people and maybe some resources and some information. So it sounds good. Is there any social media or anything like that where people can find and follow you or find and follow the organization, or is just going to the website the best bet?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn at Athena Lorin Hall, and it's Lorin. I post there regularly. There's also ZNA Health Network is on LinkedIn also. And then on Instagram, it's at ZNA Health Network, I believe. But that one is a little bit inactive. I've been focusing on LinkedIn. So.
Well, we'll get more active if you get Lucy Lawless, Xena, to be part of the organization and start talking about it. So that'll make it very active. There's also a young wrestler named Xena Sterling, so you can try with her as well.
That would be cool. Yeah.
But Lucy Lawless, I'm telling you, she's the key to everything.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right. Well, thank you for your time and your expertise. Thank you for trying to answer. I mean, we didn't do any prep, so anything that was beyond your area is certainly understandable, because this is, again, one of the largest areas on planet Earth, and no one person can be expected to know it all. But I think you acquitted yourself very well and presented your case and all that. So we thank you for being here. Is there anything that you didn't get a chance to talk about that you really wanted to talk about?
No, this has been a really wonderful conversation. I just really want to just say that it's so important for us to think about shifting power dynamics in our healthcare system so that people have a voice in changing the health system. And that should be the frontline workers and our community members, not people that are far removed from clinical care and from being a patient. We need people that are right there in the front lines to be part of changing our health system. So.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise and information. Thank you for the work that you've done and are continuing to do and are trying to do. And hopefully your network will, in fact, make a difference and improve things, hopefully during my lifetime, but certainly during yours. All right, folks, thanks for listening. Hope that you found this entertaining, informative, and educational, but mostly the latter two. And thank you to our guest, Dr. Athena Hall. Please follow her, Athena Lorin Hall, Lorin, so don't spell it wrong, and the ZNA Health Network. And thank you for the Sports Jedi Network for hosting and producing us. Thank you to the Wrestling Soup Network, who allows this content, which has nothing to do with wrestling, on your network. And for those of you who want to follow me, you can find me for Wrestling Nonsense at @dose_evil. For everything else, at IcarusFellMD. You know my real name. I'm on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn. Though I don't really do anything there. And my YouTube channel, which is really vestigial at this point because of this, is at Garden of Thought Pod. But if you want to subscribe, it makes me happy to see the numbers go up. But I mean, honestly, I landed on this network like 3 weeks after I set up that YouTube channel after doing shows for 7 years. So bully on me for spending $1,300 I probably didn't need to spend. Anyway, enough about me. You're here to learn from Dr. Hall, not from me. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Dr. Hall, for your time. We'll see you next time.